We are live now, and it's the Justin Henry Show. Got an awesome guest today, September 16th, Friday. We are covering a lot today, including starts and sits, and then also trades too. So there's some popular trade targets out there. We're gonna be covering them all. My guy Luke Sawhook is joining me, and me and him will go at it. I guarantee at some point here, man. I love this guy. He's one of my top follows on Twitter. If you're not following him, make sure you follow. This is the Justin Henry Show, baby. Stay tuned. You're watching the Justin Henry Show on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Make sure you follow on all social media platforms. What is up? It's the Justin Henry Show, and we got week 2 coming up, so I had to get my guy Luke Sawhook in the building. My guy Luke, what's happening, man?
What's up, bro? Good to see you. We really hit it off at the expo, man. We had a fun debate. You're wearing the same hat, by the way, as in that intro video from earlier. So that's a nice little throwback. Also, I like that little like club techno kind of vibe you got going in the little countdown.
You know, you gotta get the bounce in there before the show, a little bit of energy, man.
Right.
Gotta bring the energy. Definitely got the Laker hat on, you know what I'm saying? That's my squad. Sure. We signed Derek Schroeder today, so that was a nice little pickup. Doesn't move the needle a whole lot though. But let's get into it, man. Week 2 is here. We can talk about the Thursday night game in a little bit, but let's talk about some of these injuries first and foremost. We got to address them. One of the players that I want to start off with, George Kittle, has been practicing now, so expected for him to be returning. Are you starting him if you have him in any leagues?
No, I honestly don't know. I saw earlier that he's a game time decision, so that is pretty gross. Man. I mean, it depends on your options. I mean, if he plays, yes, but I don't know. I mean, if you have a good backup, I probably would roll out the backup.
Yeah, it's tough because you probably took him with high expectations that he'd be your starter. He got hurt week 1. I'm probably starting him no matter what.
Just week 1. It was before week 1.
Yeah, the game before the practice before week 1 on Monday, and then he got hurt. It's kind of lingering. I think he's a full go. I think they wait. He could have played last week against the Bears. He made the play-in trip, decided against it. I'm throwing him out there in any lineups I have against the Seahawks. Matty Two Frosty, what's good, my dude? He said, "What's up, guys?" Another player, Kenneth Walker, was activated today, for the Seahawks. And this was the hype rookie, obviously, coming out, high draft capital. Is this somebody that you would get in the lineups, or are you waiting a week to see what happens?
I'm definitely not hoping to play him this week. I mean, if you have to, or if it's a 0 RB situation, or you're thin at running back, then sure. I think he's a really talented running back, and I think he has an opportunity to, carve out a role for himself in Seattle pretty quickly this year. But that being said, I'm definitely waiting to see what the situation looks like with him and Penny on the field. Haven't really seen that dynamic at all. Only seen Penny, and Penny's been good. So, I mean, it's not going to be an immediate situation where he takes over. We're seeing with all the other rookie running backs in the NFL right now, behind veterans, Michael Carter in front of – he's not a veteran. He's only a second-year dude, but you know what I mean. Carter's in front of Brees. Yeah. Burkhead's in front of Pierce. Everyone's in front of everybody, and it's going to be the same thing for Kenneth Walker. But I do think he's a good player, and long term, I think he's going to be really well.
I think long term is more the play here. Kenneth Walker, they'll probably get him, a few carries, kind of similar to what we saw with Cam Akers. Just 3 to 5 carries, I would assume somewhere in that range. Nothing too heavy. I'm not assuming a full workload. And Rashad Penny is going to be fine. He looked good early on, so I could see him leading this pack early on, and then eventually handing the keys off to Kenneth Walker as the season goes on, as he gets healthier. Right. A team that is not getting healthier, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had a slew of injuries this week. We saw Leonard Fournette on the report, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, who is out this week. Also, Russell Gage, offensive lineman. Like, a lot of injuries for this Tampa Bay team. Are you panicking on anybody?
I'm not panicking. I mean, obviously Godwin isn't great. I wasn't a big Godwin guy coming into the year because I was scared of his health issues. Obviously, this is a new thing, so I don't love Godwin still. Yeah. I think Gage, Evans, and Julio will all play. Fournette will play. But the thing that I would say from this is, Saints are probably going to win this game, in my opinion.
Man, you think?
Tom Brady hasn't beaten the Saints and the Buccaneers.
But something's got to give. History has got to give. Like it's like betting on black. At some point it's going to turn red. Right. It's just is it going to be this game?
Right.
So,
but also heading in though, I mean, it's not having any favors. Like pretty much damn near every wide receiver you have on your team is banged up, and your running back banged up, and your tackle's banged up. Like it's just not. a good indicator of what's going to happen. But I mean, obviously the Bucs can win the game. They're favored in Vegas still, as they should be.
Right.
But I do think that the Saints have a good opportunity to win this game.
And it's one of those things where the Saints are as well, like already had that tough game against the Falcons. Like they had that kind of grinded out game where they had to come back in the fourth quarter. And we're looking at this Bucs team who kind of coasted against the Cowboys, now banged up as well. The game script, it seems like it will be in the Saints' favor a whole lot this week. Herbert, bro, got his ribs cracked, man. Does that concern you at all? It looks like he might play next week.
I mean, obviously it's not ideal, but I mean, I'm not benching him.
Yeah.
In fantasy. I mean, he's a stud. As we saw last night, I mean, he literally couldn't throw a football or run because he was
man. He was holding his ribs.
Yeah, he was like here, like I can't only dime, like beautiful.
Man,
ball.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. I love Herbert, man. He's a warrior, and I think he's gonna be fine this week.
All right,
I'm not worried.
Couple guys I want to know if you're putting in your lineup before we get into some more of these start sits. And make sure if you guys are watching, we are live right now. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Luke and I will both answer your questions for you. Najee Harris is not listed on the report this week, the injury report. He has been cleared, good to go. You starting him?
Ooh, am I starting him? I mean, yes, but this matchup is not good. The Patriots defense is going to, be the Patriots defense. And the Steelers' offense just isn't that good.
Yeah.
I'm a Steelers fan. It's not a good offense.
I mean, we saw the Dolphins cook the Patriots last week, though.
Right, but that's a high-powered offense. You got Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Tua. I mean, like, Tua's not the greatest in the world, right? But he can move the ball. We got Mitch Trubisky. Really that offensive line. And the Dolphins have a good offensive line.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think this is going to be a really low-scoring game. Very defensive-heavy. And I think that the Steelers' running game is not going to be great, especially with a banged-up Najee. I mean, he's off the injury report, but he's not 100%.
He might. I don't know. I like Najee, man. For me, he was one of my top backs coming into the year. I still expect a nice workload for him.
Matchup's gross.
Yeah, I feel like he'll be fine, man. And this week, start him. And I feel like he'll have a decent game against the Patriots. So we always know that Bill Belichick tends to scheme out the best player. We're going to find out if Najee is the guy they're targeting. DeAndre Swift, banged up with the ankle. Does the ankle concern you at all?
That one is a little concerning. I didn't see if he practiced today. But
he did practice today.
He did. Is it full or limited? Did you see?
Limited practice today for DeAndre Swift.
I think he's playing. I saw. I'm pretty sure he said that he is good to go to play this week. So I mean, obviously, I'm going to start him. But I do have a little bit lowered expectations.
Yep. And then last one for the week, Allen Lazard is questionable. Are you getting him in your lineups or are you waiting a week because the Packers need somebody? We've seen Christian Watson out there dropping 80-yard TDs. Man.
80-yard touchdown. Yeah, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, if there's like a clear tier break between Lazard and whoever else you have, yeah, obviously put him in. But I would like to wait a week and see if we can. But I have no problem with you playing him this week.
Yeah, I'm putting Lazard in. If you got him as a flex, maybe like a wide receiver 4-ish type range. I'm looking for better options, but if you don't have any other options, I'm cool with Allen Lazard getting in there. The homie Mr. Scamper's coming in saying, hey guys, what's good? What's happening, man? Glad you're with us today. Yes, sir. Any questions you guys got? Like I said, we'll take care of them. But let's get into some start-sit stuff, man. I want to talk about these players that we're looking forward to starting this week in week 2. There's some tough matchups out there, and then there's some gimmies, man, and some players that were faded. One of my favorite starts for the week, Luke, is Allen Robinson in the bounce-back game against the Falcons. A lot of people were very concerned about Allen Robinson, but to me, this pass rush for the Falcons is very weak. The secondary is not elite. There's a lot that they can do there. And Sean McVay talked about getting Allen Robinson and others involved. I think they look to get him involved very heavily. I could see him having about 75 yards getting into the end zone. I like Allen Robinson this week.
I like that too. A lot. I really do think that the secondary is pretty weak. They're obviously, the game script might change in the second half. It's going to be more run heavy. People will see a little bit of Cam Akers. Maybe. We'll see. But I do agree. I think the Rams are going to win this one pretty handedly. The line's currently Rams -10 in Vegas. So, I mean, it was expected to be not a very close football game. So, yeah. I like that.
Well, who do you got, man? Before we get on, you mentioned Cam Akers, bro. And right. Cam Akers has been like the topic. Everybody's panicking on Cam Akers right now. He had 3 carries last week. Do you how long are you holding Cam Akers, or are you trying to trade him?
I mean, I'm going to hold for sure right now. I don't think it's a good time at all to sell Cam Akers because you're going to get him for like a bag of Doritos or like a ham sandwich. You're not getting good value.
You and the chip references, my man.
Right. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's just bad process to sell Cam Akers right now. And obviously, I mean, I think you could buy him right now. Honestly, I'm not a huge believer of Cam Akers, but if you can get him for said bag of Doritos, then
Right.
it's a good trade. You know what I'm saying? It's good value for a guy who was drafted in like the third or fourth round of fantasy drafts to be, getting him for a 12th round pick in fantasy. Like, that's a great value. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's the time to panic sell. Panic selling is always a bad method.
Always.
It's week one. Like, obviously, I'm not a Cam Akers fan. He was one of the guys who was completely off my draft board this year. I have 0 shares of Cam Akers. Don't like him at all at his cost this season heading into the year. But, I mean, after what we saw and with the way his price is sitting right now in the community, I think you can get him for cheap if you find the right buyer.
Well, that's kind of so. I had no intentions of drafting Cam Akers at all, and then there he was in the 9th round, just staring me in the face. So I took him. He was somebody I was fading, but I love value.
9th round is good. I mean, I guess the guy's going in the 3rd.
Yeah, in a 12 team league, it felt like so much value. Everybody was concerned about the injury, so I took him, and I'm not panicking on him. I'm going to wait 2 weeks. If the carries start to increase, that's what I want to see. But if the production does not increase, if the carries stay around 3 to 5 for the next 2 weeks, I'm probably just going to drop. I would almost rather drop him than panic sell him right now. So for me, I'm going to wait and see what Cam Akers does.
Right.
Who you got, man? Starts of the week. Drop me one, Luke.
All right, I told you this before the show. I just think it's really funny. It's not necessarily well, I guess there is one in here. The start of the week is going to be Derek Carr, and the reasoning is 2 things. One, they're playing the Cardinals, and Patrick Mahomes threw 5 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions against the Cardinals in week 1, and he kind of took his foot off the gas later in the game. He probably could have thrown 6 or 7 easy. He's going to carve up this Arizona Cardinals secondary. I think he's going to throw at least 3 touchdowns, maybe even 4 touchdowns. And the thing I told you before the show, too, is Devontae Adams, he's legitimately my wide receiver 1 in my rankings this week. 1, again, because he's playing against the Cardinals secondary, which is super, super thin and weak. Mahomes, like I said, again, carved them up last week, and he's going to have a heyday. Obviously, Devontae Adams is going to have a heyday. He always does. But his grandma and grandpa have never seen him play in the NFL before. This is the first time that grandma is going to see him lace up the NFL. Like, bro, he's going for
nuclear.
Yeah, he's going for a lot of yards, and hopefully
he played his first game with the Raiders. He got 17 targets, completely turned around. Asante Samuel had a hell of a game, and that was without his grandma and grandpa watching. And now his grandparents are going to be there. I'm with him, man. And this Cardinals defense was blitzing the complete shit out of Pat Mahomes last week. He carved it up. I expect Derek Carr to do the same, so I can see a lot of receptions for Devontae Adams. He's got to get in the end zone. I got to imagine they're sitting in the end zone. He's going to be handing them the football at some point.
Yep.
Mr. Scammer said the Cards are so hurt right now, and yeah, man, right now it's not a good time to be a Cardinals fan. So we'll see what happens there. Another start of the week I have, my man, is Trey Lance. A lot of people,
oh my God, I love it.
A lot of people are fading him, man. And for what reason? To me, I'm like, why are you fading a guy like Trey Lance? Obviously it's very early in his career. Obviously he's not the QB1 overall. We understand that, but it was the circumstances last week were crazy. You're talking about it was damn near a hurricane out there. And so for me, I'm not panicking off of one performance. And the Seahawks defense ain't that tough. No. It's not. And they just lost Jamal Adams too. So for me, I look at Trey Lance as a potential bounce back candidate and somebody who could probably be a top 5 QB this week if he performs well.
Bro, I love it. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm like Trey Lance's number 1 stan, bro. He was like my guy heading into the year. And one of the reasons why I tweeted about it, everyone's like, "Oh my God, your victory lapping a terrible performance." Like, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. You're like, hear me out. Last week, he sucked, like absolutely sucked, like the worst game he possibly could have had. He had 160 passing yards, no touchdowns at all, and an interception. But he still put up 11 fantasy points, like
in a terrible game. Exactly.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like, people are trying to say like, "Oh, your victory lapping his floor," and like.
That's a very good thing to victory lap. Like I don't think people understand because we haven't tapped into the potential yet. And he's a 10-point per game quarterback at minimum.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like absolutely worst case scenario, which I think last week was. It was like worst case scenario. Unless he throws like 4 interceptions on top of that, which he's not going to do with the low yardage. I mean, like, I feel like an average game for Trey Lance, you're probably looking at like 200 to 250 passing yards, somewhere maybe 190, and then like a touchdown or 2, and then like 40 to 80 rushing yards, maybe a rushing touchdown or something. Like, that's what I think an average game for Trey Lance will look like. And that last week, he put up like 45 rushing yards somewhere in there. He had 13 rush attempts, by the way, which is great. And then he threw the ball terribly through the air. But listen, like that's like as bad as it possibly can get. And that's what I'm trying to tell people. Like Aaron Rodgers was like, I don't know how people didn't understand what I was trying to say. Aaron Rodgers had a similar game to Trey Lance through the air and put up 4 fantasy points.
Yeah, depending on your league. Some leagues, he was even worse.
Exactly. He did nothing. Now, I'm saying Lance still gave you a decent performance. Obviously, he was like the quarterback 25 or something on the week. It was a bad week. But if that's as bad as it gets, like...
And you know Kyle Shanahan is going to come in there and try to flex. Like, Kyle Shanahan's going to try to flex. Like, I made the right decision. Trey Lance is my guy. And you talk about guys like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. They're going to have bounce back weeks. Getting back one of the best tight ends in all of football, George Kittle, can't do anything but help this offense. And you said you were the number one Trey Lance fan. I had a Trey Lance jersey last year. So I don't know if you can take that away from me, man. I don't know if you can take that quite yet.
Maybe you are.
But hear me out. This guy is not just somebody you're going to want to fade. This is not a player that you're going to count as a top 15, 20 quarterback. This is a starting caliber quarterback for even single 10-team leagues. Give it time. Don't push the panic button yet.
People overreact so hard to week 1, man. It's crazy. And like obviously some people do it. I do it. Everyone does it, right? But it's week 1. He was playing in a fucking hurricane, man.
Yeah.
Like, cut the kid a break. I understand that Justin Fields had 2 touchdowns, so his fantasy day was salvaged.
All in the second half.
He still had a bad game. And the thing is, too, the only reason he scored those touchdowns was they were just broken plays. Like anyone makes that play, right? I make the throw to Dante Pettis on that touchdown. Maybe. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, he was wide open.
Yeah. I seen you play, man. I don't know if you can make that throw. I bet you can catch it, though. I bet you if it was Pettis, you would have caught it.
Maybe. But that's what I'm trying to say. It's just like, give him a break. The Fields didn't do great either. No one in this game did well. Just toss it out the window, and we'll see where we're going from here.
All right, bet. Well, and just to remind you guys, we're live. Got a couple questions coming in right now. One of them is about defenses. Says, sorry if it's not your thing, but week 3 defenses to add now. Giants versus Dallas. Philly versus Washington football team. Obviously, you're playing the situation there versus Dallas. I don't like either of those defenses long-term, my man, but if I'm picking one, I'm probably picking up that Giants defense versus Dallas with Cooper Rush starting.
Yeah, it's absolutely Dallas for me. It's not even close. Sorry, Giants defense. Absolutely Giants.
Yeah. All right, my man. Who else you got on the start side? You got any other starts of the week that you're looking at?
Oh man, yeah. I actually didn't prepare. I'm in bed.
Hey, you're all good. You're all good. I'll throw another one out while you get your thoughts together. Chase Edmonds to me is a start of the week candidate going up against a tough Ravens defense. But I think that they changed the script, right? We saw a lot of passing out of the Miami Dolphins last week against the Patriots, but I think that this team is going to have some checkdowns. They're going to face some pressure from this Ravens defense. And we saw last week the Jets running backs, Michael Carter, Breece Hall, both catching a lot of passes out the backfield. I can see the same thing happening with Chase Edmonds. I'm not saying he's going to have a huge rush day or a huge receiving day, but I do like him to have a lot of work with Tua checking things down and not able to get a lot of those over-the-top passes against his Ravens defense.
Right, yeah, I don't hate it at all, especially if they get behind. Negative game script can benefit Edmonds too. I like it. I really like it. For me, my start of the week is going to be. I'll throw out Melvin Gordon because he's deeper.
Okay.
They're playing Houston.
Yep.
They're gonna shred Houston, bro. I mean, after that loss in week 1, they're embarrassed. They're gonna come out here. They're gonna cook. They're gonna have a hugely positive game script. A lot of guys are going to get a lot of touches there in that backfield. Javonte's always going to get his, but Melvin Gordon's a good deep play there, I think.
Yeah. Well, I like that. And I think I think Javonte's also a good start there. But when you talk about Melvin Gordon and game script, man, last week was damn near the Super Bowl for the Houston Texans. Going up against the Colts, division game, taking them to overtime and getting a tie. I feel like they played one of their best games for Lovie Smith.
Right.
I do like Melvin Gordon in this one. I feel like once they get up, it's kind of like what we've seen a lot of teams do early on in the season. You don't want to run your studs into the ground. So we are going to see a lot more of Melvin Gordon, I think, in the second half of that game. I like that pick, man, especially if he can get in the end zone in the second half.
Appreciate it, though.
Yeah, and then a question before I get into I had Lazard as one of those questionable plays, but Lazard or Lockett? Who do you like more this week with Lazard potentially coming back, maybe still dealing with an injury, and then Tyler Lockett going up against the Niners' stingy secondary there, tough pass rush? Who do you like more?
I don't love either of these matchups, man, honestly. I think Lazard, I mean, the Bears' defense isn't great, but they're not bad. it's a division. And the thing that sucks for me with both of these is they're divisional games, which are usually harder to predict what's going to happen. But for me, I'm just going to go with the more talented player and go Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I'm going to fade Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith isn't throwing for more than 200 yards, and half that's going to go to DK, half of that's going to go to the running backs and tight ends. Like, I just don't see a lot of deep shots versus Niner defense. So unless you get that with Tyler Lockett, you're probably not getting a lot of consistency. Give me Allen Lazard. Even if he doesn't play, if they're like, hey, he's only going to play 50% of the snaps, I still would trust Allen Lazard because I feel like that's A-Rod's guy. As we saw, he didn't have a guy last week. He's going to need somebody to rely on.
He is going to need somebody to rely on, absolutely.
Yep. One more here. If Evans doesn't go, which he's expected to go, but if he doesn't, we do have to address it. Would you go with A-Rob or Henderson in a half-point PPR league, Luke?
I'd go Henderson. I think he has a safe workload.
I'm expecting A-Rob to bounce back. Even in half PPR, I think you can go safe with Henderson, but I'm expecting, as I talked about as my start of the week, Allen Robinson to perform at a high level. Hopefully you get Mike Evans in your lineup. That would be ideal.
Right.
But secondary option, well, I don't know. He's going up against Lattimore, and we know he got clamps in that matchup.
Absolutely.
But I would probably go with A-Rob. So either one, I think you have a pretty decent shot of having a decent day for both those guys. Any other guys you want to start before we get into sits?
Joe Burrow as well. Joe Burrow is going to cook, man. He's pissed.
Yeah?
Pissed. All his reports came out of him saying that he sat in his locker for like 2 hours after the game. He's going to go out there. He's going to light up this Cowboys secondary.
Joe Shiesty coming back. But
yes, sir. I
think you're right, man. I can see that Cowboys defense, man. The Cowboys are just going to be a mess for the next couple of weeks until they get things sorted out. But there was a lot of concerns about that offensive line, too, the way the Steelers pass rush got in there. You think that was more of a Steelers defense thing or a concern for Cincinnati players?
I think it's both. My roommate's a Bengals fan. I'm a Steelers fan. We both kind of agree. I mean, their offensive line, obviously, I still think they have potential. They're probably just working on the chemistry issues. It was more of a week one thing, probably. I think they're going to be in an average to above average offensive line unit. But also the Steelers are an elite defensive line unit with their linebackers. So, I kind of just chalk it up to Steelers played their ass off and the Bengals kind of disappointed expectations in week one. I don't think it's truly an indicator of how the season's going to go.
Bet. All right, cool. I can respect that. Last start of the week I have before we get into sits, Kyle Pitts. Got to get Kyle Pitts in your lineup, man. And unless the only thing that would change is if Ramsey comes out and says he's going to shadow Kyle Pitts, I think we're going to see a lot of Ramsey on London. And to me, that screams big opportunity. It's the same thing. A lot of times, we saw it with Mike Williams yesterday. A lot of times when star players miss out on week one, the goal is to get them involved in the offense, get the offense clicking in week two. I expect a big game from Kyle Pitts, who the Rams also gave up the 6 most points to tight ends last season as well. So definitely get Kyle Pitts in your lineups. Now, we got to move on to the sits. Before we do, let's get one more question in here. David Montgomery, James Robinson, or Rashad Penny. We saw David Montgomery struggle a little bit with the Niners' Khalil Herbert. Just a little minor note there in case you're wondering. James Robinson played a dual factor there with Travis Etienne, and Rashad Penny has Kenneth Walker coming back. Who are you starting, Luke?
Man, it's kind of tough. I'm looking at Jags have the Colts. That's another divisional game. They're at home. I'm going to go Montgomery. I think that this game's going to be closer than people expect for the Packers Bears.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be a blowout with the Packers weapons, so I think Montgomery's going to get a fair share of carries.
Yeah, if I had to go with one, I'd probably go with Rashad Penny, just because I know the Seahawks are going to run the football. They need to run the football. I'm not really concerned about Kenneth Walker coming in and taking carries. The David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert thing is kind of concerning. I know they played in the elements as well last week. Just a little pause for concern there. And James Robinson, tough matchup against a Colts defense. Unless he gets in the end zone, he might not have the day you're expecting. So good question, though, my man.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, sits, man. And it's funny because you talked about, the Chicago-Green Bay game. And my sit of the week is Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Sit of the week is Justin Fields against the Packers defense. Darnell Mooney's going to be shadowed probably by Jair Alexander. At least see him on a lot of his on his routes. And Justin Fields in the first half of that Niner game was terrible. Like, he was bad and kind of salvaged his day with a few touchdowns late in that game. I feel like the weapons are so limited for this Bears team in a tough division game. Aaron Rodgers and this Green Bay Packer team are going to be looking for revenge after a bad week one. So give me Justin Fields as my sit of the week.
I like it. I like it a lot for all the reasons you just said. I think it's a tough matchup. He doesn't have the weapons. I'm a fan.
Yeah. One of the things, Penny was the least talked about storyline post week 1, right? Well, Rashad Penny, it is, he had a decent game. It's not like he was, doing anything. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he had a
No.
nice role, and we're going to see Kenneth Walker in the offense at some point. So I understand any concerns that you have about Rashad Penny, or if you don't have concerns, you should, because Kenneth Walker at some point, when this team is losing games, is going to be part of this offense. Now, is it going to be in a split? Is it going to be where he eventually takes over? That remains to be seen. But Rashad Penny looked good, and for the first 8 to 10 weeks, you're probably sitting on a true RB2 flex option.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Absolutely. Love it.
All right, another sit of the week. You got any sits of the week dialed in?
Yeah, I think CD Lamb's a really good sit.
Oh, good call.
I mean, it's the first week with Cooper Rush in there, and let's be honest, he's probably going to be total ass. The Cowboys don't have a lot of weapons. I think that they know that if the Bengals take away CD Lamb, it's a pretty easy recipe to success here to stop this Cowboys offense. So I think that they're going to have to, make sure that CD Lamb goes out there. They're going to focus a lot of attention on him on defense. And I think he's probably going to have a slow week. And, at the worst, at the best, I think he's a wide receiver 2. I don't think he has wide receiver 1 upside this week.
Yeah, I don't like CeeDee Lamb at all with Cooper Rush, and especially with the news that Michael Gallup is going to be out this week. I know there was talks of him potentially being back this week. That's not happening. And this Cowboys situation, I'm fading it completely until Dak gets back at minimum. I said earlier in the week, if I had CeeDee Lamb right now, I'd probably be trading him 90 cents on the dollar, just for the simple fact that he doesn't have the elite upside that you drafted him for.
Is it 90 cents on the dollar? I feel like it's like 75 cents on the dollar.
I feel like it's too steep, because when Dak comes back, say it's 4 weeks out, Dak comes back, there's potential that CeeDee Lamb has developed, that he's grown, but that's going to be a cold 2 to 4 weeks without production from your wide receiver. And it's one of those, he's a receiver you can't bench.
Right.
Like if you have CeeDee Lamb, you don't put him on your bench. You're just like, I hope he doesn't fail me this week. And you have to play him. So to me, I will let that be somebody else's problem for the next 2-4 weeks. Get a little bit on your money. 75 might be a little too steep. Like, give me a player. If you're talking 75 cents on a dollar, you're going like Gabe Davis for CeeDee Lamb.
Oof, I think I would take Gabe Davis. I would.
Really? Oh, I can't give away. That was one of my trades that we got trades. We're gonna be talking trades in just a little bit. So let's get on with these sits before we get in there, because that's gonna be kind of fun. One more sit of the week for me. I have James Robinson. I just talked about him. To me, it's going to be going up against a tough D line there with the Colts. Just a tough defense in general, division matchup. And we didn't see James Robinson really being used in the passing game, right? That's Travis Etienne's role. We know that, and it was clear as day during that Commanders game. So without the catch upside there for James Robinson, you're really depending on a touchdown against, like I said, a stout Colts defense. So to me, if he doesn't get that touchdown, you're sitting at maybe it's 12 to 15 carries for 50, 60 yards. Like, to me, that doesn't seem like a true game that you don't want to be relying on him getting a touchdown or two. So to me, I'm sitting James Robinson this week.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think that he's tough for me to sit just because I think his usage is going to be higher again than people might expect.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that I think the workload might tip more towards Etienne after this week.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. There's a lot of people panicking on Etienne. Are you big on Etienne? Because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, he didn't have a lot of touches. He didn't produce that well week 1. I liked what I saw, and I liked the targets and the looks that he was getting. Are you panicking, or you're telling everybody to pick him up because he's going to be dynamic second half?
I'm like slightly nervous, but I like it. I was never like the biggest Etienne fan. I like him. Breece Hall's my boy of the younger running backs in the middle rounds. Yep. I think down the stretch he's going to be really solid. Right now, obviously he's earning the reps, getting his way up the depth chart. But Etienne, people expected him to be the week 1 like the guy.
Right.
But it kind of looks like he might be earning his way up too. So I don't really know. I like him, but I am a little nervous.
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest Etienne fan because I felt like the hype was starting to take over his draft, his ADP. So it was like you had to draft him as a top 15 guy if you really wanted him. To me, he slots comfortably in like that back tier RB2 range. And to me, I think he'll be that the rest of the year. I don't see a whole lot of true upside until maybe the fantasy playoffs, which at that point, anything goes. So,
right.
All right, we guys continue to drop your questions for us. Any players? We're going to go over some trade-em stuff, right? Who are you trading for? And I'm going to throw a few trade scenarios out to you, Luke, with popular players right now who are either struggling or playing at a high level. So
go for it, man.
Let's dial in and get into both sides of the deal, what you like, what you don't like. First one, trade him Aaron Jones for A.J. Dillon. Which side are you taking?
Oh man, give me Aaron Jones. Give me Aaron Jones. It's way too early to do anything like that, in my opinion.
Now, a lot of people are going to say A.J. Dillon looks like he has the safer floor. He's going to get used a lot in the red zone. Does that concern you at all? I'm on the Aaron, just to let you know, I'm on the Aaron Jones side too. But there's a big amount of fantasy players who probably have A.J. Dillon over Aaron Jones right now and want to ease some of those concerns.
Yeah, I see. For me, like you mentioned about the goal line work, I think that the safest thing with Aaron Jones is the passing work. I mean, A.J. Dillon had a higher Week 1 passing total, but I think it's kind of fluky, and I think that Aaron Jones is still the dude.
Yeah, I really like Aaron Jones. I think he'll bounce back this week against the Bears too. Aaron Rodgers needs him. We saw they couldn't get anything going on the offensive side of the ball, so they absolutely need Aaron Jones to come in.
They do, absolutely, bro.
Here we go. So who are we starting? This is a start sit question coming in from YouTube. Josh Jacobs or Darrell Henderson? This is an interesting one because Josh Jacobs did not perform to expectation, but he had a lot more touches than I thought he would, to be honest. I thought it was going to be more of a split. We saw Darrell Henderson really take over that workload. I'll go with you first. Who you got?
I want to go Jacobs. Like I mentioned, I think this matchup is a smash against Arizona. I think he's going to score a touchdown or two.
You know what? It's weird because I like Jacobs too, and a lot of people are going the Darrell Henderson route, calling him an RB1 right now. And to me, he seems like it's almost identical scenarios. He just had a better game last week. So right. I think Cam Akers gets a little bit more involved this week. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is still going to be involved. We talked about Allen Robinson being a smash this week. So give me Josh Jacobs a little bit more of a Hail Mary. So there's a lot more of a floor, I would say, for Josh Jacobs in this scenario, though.
Absolutely. This is a fun one that Kev just asked.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good one right here. Brady or Lance? So Tom Brady in a tough matchup. You talked about the Saints and this defense and then potentially winning this game as well. A lot of injuries for the Bucs. Or Trey Lance against the Seahawks, also a division game there. Who do you like?
I'm going to stick with my boy. I'm going to go Trey Lance, man. Better matchup, okay? His weapons are, well, except for George Kittle.
Yeah.
Healthy, but hey, he didn't have George Kittle last week, so if he's there in any capacity, it's better than not having him. And
yes.
like you said, Brady, literally all of his wide receivers and his running back and some of his offensive line are injured. Or not injured, but banged up to some degree. I don't feel good about Brady. I mean, he obviously could have a great game. Yeah. But it's enough for me to be a tiebreaker to put in Lance first.
I'm going to have some fun with this one because everybody who follows and subscribes to this channel knows I'm going to say Trey Lance. So I'm just going to have a little fun with this one. Tom Brady's mood seems a little different this year. He sat out early in the preseason. He sat out of practice this week. It seems like the vibe's a little bit off there. The offensive line, there's a lot of injuries going on. But Trey Lance, through all the noise, seems like he's having a good time. My boy was making it rain this week in a strip club. So I'm going with Trey Lance, baby. He seems like he's ready to ball out this week. I'm taking Trey Lance for that reason specifically.
Bro was having fun in there, man. That was so funny.
He is, man. I can't blame him. He's young. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people want him to be.
If he has a big game this week, I'm going to use that after he scores a touchdown.
Do it every week. If you have a big game this week, do that every week. It's like I think a lot of people are not letting the kid live, man. At the end of the day, he's a kid, man. And I know that there's a standard for starting quarterbacks. You want to be focused on football. One day having fun. I ain't too mad at it though.
Nah.
Michael Thomas or DK Metcalf? You had to take DK Metcalf a little bit earlier in most drafts. You had to get him a little earlier than Michael Thomas. Who are you taking in this one?
Man, I'm actually going Michael Thomas. I think that both these guys don't have easy matchups. Saints got Tampa Bay, good defense, performed really well against Dallas. And then DK has the 49ers, another really tough matchup. I'm going to go Michael Thomas. I think Jameis is a better quarterback, and we also saw a return to form for him last week. I'm pretty confident in MT.
Yeah, I like the matchup this week for MT, even though because the Falcons' defense isn't that, it's not that scary. I know they got AJ Terrell in the secondary there. I'm not too concerned about that matchup though. I think Jameis has the knack for getting players the ball, no matter if they're covered or not. DK right now is a little concerning. I think he warms up at some point, but it was a little concerning to see that he was basically just getting a lot of checkdowns from Geno. So the Niners are going to cause a lot more of those, whether it's the secondary or it's the pass rush. Give me MT this week. What about trade? If you had to trade one of these guys for the rest of the year, MT or DK?
Man, before the season, I would have said DK because I wasn't too confident in MT's health. I don't want to overreact to week one, but I saw Michael Thomas be Michael Thomas last week. I'm going to take Michael Thomas.
Yeah, and it's just more of a concern for DK Metcalf. I thought for sure he was just going to come in and still be DK, still be that dominant guy, which at times it looked like he was against the Broncos, like it did. But there's long-term concerns there if Geno's the quarterback because he's only throwing for 200 yards a game. Like,
Right.
there's just not a lot of explosive potential. Whereas Michael Thomas, we saw it last week, 2 touchdowns in a game. I can see a lot more receptions coming his way or more yardage if Jameis starts to get more comfortable in that offense. So give me the upside with Michael Thomas.
Right. I agree, man. I totally agree.
Let's get it. We agree more than I thought. I ain't gonna lie, Luke. I thought we were gonna come on here and debate the same thing for 5 hours.
Yeah, we can say it if we want, but yeah, I have a problem.
Allen Robinson is a guy that was taken in the top 20 to 25 receivers.
Right.
And then a guy who was taken outside of probably the top 35 receivers in a lot of leagues, Christian Kirk. If you had a trade right now, Allen Robinson and somebody was trading you Christian Kirk straight up, who had a really good game. I think it was 7 catches for 115 yards, somewhere in that realm. Who would you take, Allen Robinson or Christian Kirk for the rest of the season?
I'm taking A-Rob still. I think that he has higher upside in his offense. I think that he, I think he can score a lot of touchdowns this year, honestly. I think they're going to figure out the kinks. I think the week 1, it was just kind of, they hadn't really played a full game yet together. Didn't really know how to use them properly.
Facts.
Matthew Stafford also just loves throwing to wide receivers, apparently. It's a weird thing that's going on there, bro. I don't know what the hell is going on with Matthew Stafford. But, bro, I trust Sean McVay to figure out how to use Allen Robinson. I think he's going to have a big year. I like A-Rob. Christian Kirk is good. I like Christian Kirk. But I think you're going to see a lot more volatility week to week in the Jacksonville offense compared to LA, who's kind of a superpower offense.
Very, very good point. They had to score that game. Wentz threw 4 touchdowns that game, so you knew they had to throw a lot. But to me, Christian Kirk, this speaks more to Christian Kirk's value than it does to A-Rob's. I expect A-Rob to be that consistent back-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 that you drafted him as. I think Christian Kirk was just a little bit disrespected because of the contract, A, and then B, I think just because of his, being number 1 in Jacksonville isn't too sexy. Like, it's not a situation where you thought, oh, I'm going to go get elite production out of this guy. But I could see him having a consistent weekly floor of 4 to 5 catches with 60 yards. I feel like that's very safe to say for Christian Kirk, which is good value to have at your wide receiver 3.
So somebody just tweeted at me. Someone called Trey Lance Lap Dance Lance.
Hey, I like it. Bands will make you Lance. Bands will make you Lance. That's what I'm going to call him. From Lap Dance so Lance.
Funny,
I like that
bro.
too. That's
a good fantasy team. I might chance some of my fantasy team games that I have Trey Lance on.
Lap Dance Lance. I ain't mad at that one.
That's hilarious.
Who we trading for real quick before we get into some more trades? Who we trading Darrell Henderson for with his value high right now? One of the players I actually had on deck was Travis Etienne. Darrell Henderson or Travis Etienne? Who would you trade for? Because if I had Henderson right now and Travis Etienne was out there, I'd be sending that offer.
I would absolutely send that offer as well. I totally agree with you on the same basis. For me, the guy that I'm targeting in trades, let me know what you think about this. He's a little cheaper. He has been cheaper, but I trust him. Last year he balled out. Week 1 he balled out. I want Kareem Hunt, man. I like Kareem Hunt. I like Kareem Hunt.
So instead of, you're getting the other side of the split just in case, and I like Kareem Hunt too, but you're going, instead of getting the lead guy in the split for now, you're getting the back end of the split. Does that concern you at all?
No, I mean, Kareem Hunt is Kareem Hunt. I mean, he's produced in Cleveland this entire time he's been there as a top 24 running back. He was drafted as the RB 31 in redraft leagues this year, which made no sense. It's just because he got injured last season. Last year when he was healthy for the first few weeks of the year, he was the RB 21 in points per game. I like Kareem Hunt, man. I think he's really good. He has high upside on a week-to-week basis. I mean, Nick Chubb had a hell of a game last week. He had 120 rushing yards or something.
Yes.
Kareem Hunt still had a huge game. I mean, they both get plenty. I don't really even see it as an RB1, RB2 situation.
You're making a really damn good point right now, man, because one of the things that we value with the Green Bay offense is that Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon get so much work, but both of those guys are round 1, round 5 guys. You had to take A.J. Dillon in the 5th round, so why was Kareem Hunt going in the 10th round? Why is he valued as an RB3 flex when it's legitimately the same thing? Both of these running backs are going to be high volume for this team, especially with Deshaun Watson out.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Kareem Hunt really evolve in the receiving game last week too, which is huge.
Yes, I love it, man. Good point, man. Half point PPR, Pittman sits Garrett Wilson, Kadarius Toney, or Mark Ingram. Kadarius Toney. Yeah, or Mark Ingram, given Kamara also being hurt. So Alvin Kamara is expected not to play this week. I'm not sure if we touched on that earlier or not. I can't remember. But Alvin Kamara is expected to be out this week, which would obviously elevate Mark Ingram a little bit. Kadarius Toney saw no love last week. 7 plays on the field, only 3 touches. And Garrett Wilson showed out pretty well for the Jets last week. Who you rocking with?
Man, that's tough. If Kamara is out, I think I'd go Mark Ingram. But because he could easily fall in the end zone. I like Garrett Wilson. I do. Yeah. I think he's really good. I think he was super underrated in fantasy Twitter, honestly. I saw a tweet about it a couple times. I'm a huge Treylon Burks guy. I'm leading the hype train for Burks. I'm a huge Drake London guy, leading the hype train for Drake London. Nobody's talking. I mean, Chris Olave. A lot of people love Chris Olave.
Yeah.
A lot of people love. Who am I forgetting? There's Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Pickens. Exactly. Nobody gave a shit about Garrett Wilson. Like his ADP wasn't super cheap, but nobody was hyping him up that I saw.
It was the Elijah Moore love.
Player, he's a good player.
Everybody was on Elijah Moore and having a decent season. I think seeing Flacco in here too early on has changed a little bit as well. But to me, I'm not big on Garrett Wilson, but we know the talent's there, so you can't deny it. Right. So I think later on in the year, we'll see more Garrett Wilson. He shined a little bit more than initially thought. I got to start in halfway PPR. I don't feel good starting Mark Ingram, so I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson in this one. I would love to say Kadarius Toney, but when you just don't see the field, it's tough for me to put you in my lineup.
If you're not even in Kadarius Toney, man.
Who knows? I thought he was headed towards like a massive upside wide receiver 3, back end wide receiver 2 type role this year with Brian Dable. I totally agree with
you. Dude, bro barely saw the field.
It's very concerning. So if you have Kadarius Toney, this is a player that I would watch for a couple weeks. I wouldn't do anything rash with them. I'm not dropping him because the upside is tremendous. So
he was cutting a lot of my league.
He was unfairly, I think. And so if he's out there in your leagues, just make sure you're watching him. Don't let him go for free. If you had Christian Kirk or Jalen Waddle this week, who are you playing?
Stop it, man. Come on. I mean, just think of the talent of these dudes, man. Yeah. You got to throw out Jalen Waddle in a big-time matchup against Baltimore.
Yeah, they're going to need him. They're going to need him, especially against Baltimore this week. Nick Chubb or Antonio Gibson this week, and this is actually a better question than it seemed 2 weeks ago. This would have been a no-brainer. But we saw Antonio Gibson have a top 15 week last week, and he was involved in the run game and pass game. Nick Chubb is a dog, though, and he does exactly what he does every single week. Who are you rocking with this week?
Give me Chubb, man. They're playing the Jets. They're going to pound the rock, bro. Pound the rock. It's going to be a super positive game script, most likely, unless Joe Flacco comes out and cooks against Jacoby Brissett. I don't know. But Nick Chubb is going to be himself. He's going to get a huge workload. And then Antonio Gibson's, they're playing Detroit. Pretty solid defense. Yeah. Detroit. I think they're a sneaky good team, man. Yeah, I'm going to go with Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb is the play here. I expect Nick Chubb to probably get in the end zone as well this week. Antonio Gibson, though, better than people thought, man. He's not a punt pass protector. He's not this bum. I mean, dude, he's been a top 15 running back every year he plays in the full season.
I've never seen. I said this before the season started. We've never treated a running back with the level of disrespect we treated Antonio Gibson with, bro. He's going into his third year. We're throwing him in the garbage. He's been a top 15 running back the first 2 seasons. I mean, obviously the situation's not great.
Right.
It's been bad the last 2 years, too. I don't know. I just don't understand it, man.
It's tough because you can't really value him like that because, at some point, Brian Robinson's going to come in and real football plays a more factor than just what you put on fantasy-wise. But fantasy-wise, unless you're getting a guy that's considered a top 15 back, why would you trade Antonio Gibson? Why would you trade him for anything less? So make sure you value him as that until we figure out what's going on with Brian Robinson, who we did see on the practice field. So shout out to Brian Robinson for getting back on the practice field so quickly. This is a tough one right here from Trevor. Jarvis Landry or Curtis Samuel. Who are we starting, boys? This is a very tough one because both of them are going to see volume and not a lot of yardage. Could both potentially see red zone scores with the matchups that they have. Who do you like this week?
Man, it's tough. I think these guys in a very similar tier.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Curtis Samuel. I think that Jarvis Landry just doesn't have as much juice left in the tank nickname. But anyway, I like Samuel, man. I think that he is the guy who can get some design jet sweeps, maybe even a carry or 2 for Washington. I like him. I think that he's a pretty big role in this offense. We didn't get to see him at all last year, so he's super underrated right now still, even though after he had a really big week 1. He led the team in targets, bro. He had 11 targets. I mean, Jarvis Landry did 2. But, Curtis Samuel, that's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, I think if we didn't see Curtis Samuel get in the end zone, we would be screaming out Jarvis Landry here. So that's the guy I'm going to rock with, Jarvis Landry. But Curtis Samuel is climbing up the rankings, and he does have a very similar appeal in PPR leagues especially. They're very similar usage in their roles in their offense. So I don't think you can go wrong either way. I'd probably go with Jarvis if I had to bet on one, though. Another trade, so we're talking about Curtis Samuel and his increased production. I want to throw one trade at you. Curtis Samuel for Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith, easily. Bro.
Easily?
Yes.
Talk to me.
A conversation because of a week 1 overreactions, man. Devontae Smith runs circles around Curtis Samuel as far as NFL talent, in my opinion. Circles. He's a wide receiver 2 on that offense. A.J. Brown's going to be A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith's going to be open. He's going to get opportunity.
Now, does Devontae Smith? So I'm on the opposite side. I would actually rather. I'm not sure I would give up Devontae Smith for Curtis Samuel just because of what you probably paid draft wise.
Right.
But I think I'd rather have Curtis Samuel on my team over Devontae Smith. There's going to be a lot of down weeks with Devontae Smith, as we saw last week, right? Just non-existent because the volume's not going to be there for Jalen Hurts, who's going to throw somewhere in that 3,000 to 3,500 yard range. Doesn't leave a lot of room for error, especially when you got a guy as talented as AJ Brown, who's in there dominating touches the way he does. Dallas Goedert played really well, and we know this team's going to run the football, especially towards the second half of the year. Jalen Hurts going to be using his legs, so I probably would like the Devontae Smith side of the deal, just so I can trade him or just so I can have value. But I would rather have Curtis Samuel. I know it's playing the sides a little bit, playing both sides of the fence. I'd rather have Curtis Samuel.
Cool. No, I get that.
All right, we got to talk about one more player before we get into this question right here. Who we'll probably spend a little extra time on this question right here. Kev, we see you, and that question's coming. One more player though, Julio Jones.
I love Julio. That's my boy, man.
I love me some Julio this year, and a lot of people weren't sure where to put him. He has a role in this offense now. It's clear as day. They're going to be utilizing him in different formats. Terry McLaurin, who would you rather have in this deal? Julio Jones or Scary Terry right now?
Bro, in a trade? Give me Terry all day, bro. I love Julio. That's my boy, but he is not a top 20 wide receiver yet. I love him.
Right.
Literally, Julio. I literally tweeted as soon as he signed in Tampa that he'd be a top 30 wide receiver there. My name was smeared across the internet for like 48 hours. I'm not even joking. People were saying I was clickbaiting, that it was like absolutely garbage. I didn't really understand it at the time. Like, I get it. Like, he's obviously not what he used to be. But the pathway
is that true? Is he not what he used to be?
He's on that Tom Brady diet, bro. I don't know what the hell he's doing. He's eating kale and drinking like 15 gallons of water a day. He looks good out there, man. I don't know. But did you see bro's face after he came down with that big catch, though? Like, the grimace was real, bro.
He's back, bro. Like, I think a lot of people are just thinking because the age, 33, or because what we saw with the Titans, or he faded off a little bit with the Falcons, like he's just not a good player anymore. This dude is still talented. He hasn't been in the right situations. He's been hurt a lot. So I think if the injuries aside, which you saw him dealing with a lot of injuries this week, injuries aside, if we can see Julio Jones on the field, he's still the same guy. We saw with Antonio Brown. A lot of people wrote Antonio Brown off. He came in, and when you play with Brady, somebody who can get you the ball in the right spots, it changes their perception of you. And I think Julio Jones is fine. But I'm not going to overreact.
I got Terry still, bro. I got Terry pretty easily here. Not gonna lie.
So I still like Terry, and we saw with Samuel though. I'm bumping Terry down a lot, and I think Scary Terry is probably a top 50. Yeah, he's a top 15 wide receiver in real football. But when you talk about what Dotson's bringing to the table, Curtis Samuel there now, and we know Carson Wentz he's not throwing 4 touchdowns every week. He's not throwing 4 touchdowns every week. So
you really think that Curtis Samuel is going to be out targeting Terry McLaurin on a consistent
hell no, I don't think he's going to be out targeting him, but he's going to have a role in that offense, similar to just. We know that Ron Rivera has always loved to use Curtis Samuel in that role. Like, that's just been something he's never really had. His wide receiver ones have always struggled to produce at a high level just because that's the way that the offense runs. They run a lot through their running backs as well. And we talked last year when he said he wanted him to be McCaffrey. We saw how that worked out. But they also brought in Dotson, too, who showed that he's going to have a viable part in this offense as well. So I am scaling Scary Terry back just a little bit.
Real quick, on Dotson, I think he's kind of fool's gold right now, bro, honestly.
Why you say that?
For waivers, he only caught 3 balls, 2 were touchdowns. If he doesn't catch those touchdowns, nobody cares about his week 1.
But he did catch the touchdowns, and you got to give players their respect. He's probably going to be a red zone guy for them more so than like a huge yardage guy. I think he'll be inconsistent week to week, but that takes away from Scary Terry because that's a guy that they were using in the red zone. Now it's another option for them not to use, and Logan Thomas got healthy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me say this real quick. I like Jahan Dotson. He's a good player. I'm just saying for waiver wires last week, I think he was a little overhyped with those 2 touchdowns on 3 catches.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Devin Duvernay. 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. You know,
I don't care about Devin Duvernay, bro.
Not at all. Not at all.
A lot of people do.
All right, last one before we get into this Deontay Johnson deep dive for whatever that's worth. Thank you, gentlemen. If you're willing to trade Derrick Henry, what type of value would you seek? Be specific if you have targets to give for him. Very specific question. So hopefully we answer it to the standards that are set right there. But Derrick Henry to me is a guy that I would be targeting if I did not have him. And I would be targeting him after week 2. We're going to see him in prime time. He might struggle a little bit against the Bills. He might go off against the Bills. I like Derrick Henry as a running back. But there's a lot of negative sentiment when it comes to him because he didn't have a big week 1 and because that they lost A.J. Brown. This whole Titans offense has been downgraded now. It seems like everybody's fading this Titans offense because they lost A.J. Brown and a key piece on the offensive line. And it's not like they're going to go to shit.
Bitch.
Burks is there. Hey, Burks is there.
No.
Treylon Burks is there, and he played really well last week, actually, just to give him his props. But Robert Woods will be fine. Kyle Phillips looked kind of sneaky good last week, so I'm not writing off this Titans offense, nor am I writing off Derrick Henry.
Yeah, absolutely, bro.
Who would you trade for him? So trade targets for Derrick Henry. Now, if I had like Austin Eckler, I would be like, hey, let me get Derrick Henry in another piece. Or if I had like Joe Mixon, or I'm trying to think of players up in that top, I would be looking RB1 to get Derrick Henry and another player. If I was trading Derrick Henry, I would be looking for a player, at least a running back, wide receiver, like two combination of both of those guys, like a Michael Thomas and a Javante's asking a little much, but something like that, where I'm trying to get Aaron Jones and Michael Thomas. I would
go for a straight swap wide receiver, honestly. I would go like Henry for Jamar if you could get it, or Henry for like Diggs or something. I would take that.
But nobody's giving, after Derrick Henry's performance last week, a lot of people ain't giving that up.
I know, I'm just saying, if you can.
So with Derrick Henry, go for the stars, and if you don't get him, keep him.
Right, yep.
Facts, I love that. All right, here we go. Now, let's get into this. Luke and I, a little backstory. Luke and I had talked a little bit about Diontae Johnson on Twitter, had a little back and forth at the Fantasy Football Expo, and I think we both made some decent points, and obviously I'm not going to change your thoughts on Diontae Johnson. You think he's him. I think he's mid. So when we talk about Diontae Johnson, man, he had a really good game last week, 12 targets, which was a big concern of mine heading into the year with Mitch Trubisky as the starter, but didn't produce at necessarily a high level. How are you feeling right now about Diontae Johnson? Because I know earlier in the offseason, before all the games started, you had him ranked pretty high. I want to say like in your top 12 even. How are you feeling about him right now?
Top 12 was 13. I still feel good about the ranking in general. I think that he is getting the volume that I want to see. The Steelers offense looked absolutely horrible last week, by the way. Horrible. Yeah. Horrible. So, like, I'm not putting too much weight into Deontay's performance. Well, I do like the target share, and I think that is more accurate of the indication of the usage that I think that we can expect from Diontae Johnson. I do think he's a good player, and that's where we kind of disagreed more often. I think that he is a really good player, and he's a guy that I think earns targets and earns opportunities, and I think that that's the difference between our takes. Like, you don't think he's that good. I think he's really good. And I think it's less about the quarterback who's throwing him the ball and more about the scheme and more about the talent of the guy who gets open. And that's why Diontae gets targeted. So, yeah, I like him. I think the volume's there. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm not as big on Diontae Johnson. I think that he's more of a volume guy. Like, he doesn't have the traits to me of a guy that can lead a wide receiving core and be the alpha of a wide receiving core if there was another viable target there. Like, that's why I think eventually at some point Chase Claypool or George Pickens is going to be more important in this offense than Diontae Johnson. I think there's a role for him. And I think that he's a good player. Now, am I putting him in that top 15 category? Absolutely not. Especially when we got guys like Michael Thomas climbing up the rankings, Michael Pittman climbing up the rankings. It's just I put him in that back-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 range. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, we got Jalen Waddle in that range. That's about where I would have Diontae Johnson comparatively. And Jalen Waddle's an elite talent too. So I think production-wise, he can make up for whatever lack of talent that he has, in my opinion. But I think he's a better player than I was giving him credit for.
Attaboy. Well, that's it, man.
At the end of the day, it is what it is, man. And Diontae Johnson, I'm sure we'll cover it, come back to it, circle back later on in the year, but that is what it is. Any parting thoughts, my man, before week 2? Any thoughts that you have that you're looking at heading into this weekend?
Apologize to Trey Lance now because he's going to need it.
So put a number on it. So you think Trey Lance against the Seahawks, obviously he was one of my starts of the week. Put a number on it. How many passing yards? How many TDs? How many rush yards?
Ooh, I mean, it's hard to predict the scoring.
Nah. None of that hard stuff. I want you to put a number on it right here.
Fine. I feel like he's going to go 238, 2 tutties through the air, 1 interception, and on the ground he's going to add 63 yards and a touchdown.
Woo! So 3 TDs, 60 rushing, 240 passing, 238 passing.
Yeah. Yep.
That would total up to
around 300 total yards, 3 tutties, and an interception.
Yo, I love that. Because I was looking at like somewhere closer to 225. I was thinking 50 to 75 yards on the ground and 3 total touchdowns. Because I think they're for sure going to use him in the red zone, especially with Jeff Wilson Elijah Mitchell being out.
They're going to give him the Josh Allen treatment, bro. They're going to do a little read option, a little keeper, a little speed option at the goal line, and let him run in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and since I'm a Niner fan, we got to talk about it. Who is the running back that you like the most? A lot of people went and spent a lot of their money on Jeff Wilson this week. Some people were sneaky and picked up TDP, Tyrion Davis-Price, and some people picked up Jordan Mason. With Elijah Mitchell out, Debo taking over a bunch of the carries as well. Who do you like long-term for the rest of the year out of the Niners backfield?
Bro, it's tough. I think for cheap, I like Jordan Mason as the dart throw, and then I like Jeff Wilson. I mean, I don't know. It's hard, man. You don't really know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I talked about it yesterday. I think Jeff Wilson is just like the safe choice. You'll get him for the next few weeks, but one of these backs is going to take over. Like
I agree.
He's had this opportunity before. Like Jeff Wilson's had this opportunity to come in and be the starter, be the guy, and there's a reason they keep drafting running backs. It's because he's not that guy. So to me, I think TDP, if he gets the chance, Tyrion Davis-Price is the kind of guy that has the draft capital. They want him to be the guy. Now, if Jordan Mason is him, then he wins. But I'm betting on Tyrion Davis-Price for free right now. You can go pick him up in any league right now, I'm assuming.
It just feels like, bro, I feel like I'm getting fucking war flashbacks to last year with this 49ers backfield.
Sermon and Mitchell last year.
Mostert gets injured week 1.
Yep.
Then Jeff Wilson's the starter. Chris Sermon sucks, and Elijah Mitchell emerges. It's the same scenario. So basically, the same thing would be, Elijah Mitchell gets hurt, Wilson's the starter, Jordan Mason emerges, and TDP sucks.
If Jordan Mason comes out of this thing as a starter, Shanahan just should not draft any running backs. Just pick them all up. Free agents after the draft, undrafted.
Yeah, Wilson's going to be the lead guy, and then the other two we don't really know, and they're going to ride the hot hand. So basically, it's mode 4. Close your eyes and throw a dart at the dartboard.
My man, Luke, well, I appreciate you coming on. As always, good conversation, my man. Tell the people where they can find you at, bro.
Just go to Twitter. It's right here. It's at Luke Sawhook. You'll find all my stuff from there. Podcasts. I make the best nachos you've ever seen in your life. Just come hang out, man.
How did nachos become your thing?
I don't know. I was talking about this.
I ain't gonna lie, they look like shit, bro.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a bit at this point. But anyway, I always just kind of made them like growing up as like a late night snack. You throw them in the microwave. It's good. It's a good little snack. Like late night thing. They are pretty solid. I will say, like they taste pretty. I mean, do you like chips? Do you like cheese? And do you like hot sauce?
Bro, you need to throw some meat on there, man. Get the grilled chicken and get start upgrading with the olives and the tomatoes. Like
I don't know. The only I'm very non-picky with my food, but I don't like olives. I don't know why. Anyway, now it just kind of just became a thing. Like I always just kind of made them. And as I got like a Twitter following like 2 years ago, I think I just posted them one day and everyone hated it. So I think I just kept doing it and it's become a thing. I don't know.
Naturally, man. Well, hey, keep making your nachos. Keep on with your awesome content, man. If you're not following Luke, like I said, he's dynamic. One of the people on Twitter that when you meet him, he's better in person, man. So shout out to you. Appreciate you coming on the show. Definitely got to have you on again, bro.
Appreciate it, dog. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to chop it up with you, man. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Well, that does it for the Justin Henry Show. Make sure you guys watch every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Try to go live a little bit more for you. I know I do a little bit of pre-recording, but next week I'll have a lot of live episodes so I can answer your questions directly. You guys stay tapped in with me. It's the Justin Henry Show. See you next time.